And what excites me about this is that we have several subscription companies, software companies, who recognize that subscriptions just by themselves are a pain point. Nobody goes, yay, subscriptions, right? But finding creative ways, whether it's rent to own like Splice does with Serum, whether it's a rebate like Kilohearts, whether it's amazingly no-brainer deals like Museo and their educational discount, finding creative ways to soften the blow, because I don't think they're not going anywhere. What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the 52Qs podcast, a weekly podcast dedicated to all things production and library music, where we talk about industry topics and take deep dives into the different aspects of being a working production music composer. My name is Dave Croft, and I'm a professional composer and educator, and I love teaching music to career-minded creators just like you, and I have been for over 2 decades. So if this is your first time here, welcome. I'm so glad you found me, however you found me. Today's episode is made possible thanks to the family, friends, and patron subscribers of 52Qs who really do keep everything going. We are 100% community supported, so if you like what I do here, don't thank me, thank them. But if you want to learn more about how you can support 52Qs while also unlocking subscriber perks like live streams, workshops, Zoom feedback sessions, and a ton more, then be sure to click on the links in the description for more information. On today's episode, I want to talk about subscriptions, and are they just a necessary evil, or is there a silver lining to having an always-on software as a service, access to every single plugin we could ever hope for a monthly fee? Well, I've decided to welcome some of our family subscribers who come from all over the world with all different experiences and all different backgrounds to really help me understand where are we at with subscriptions. I am so excited to be welcomed to the podcast by several members of the 52Qs family. And what you might not realize there at home is, and we've already laughed, this is take 8 or 9, I don't know. And it's not them, it's me, it's Dave messing this up. But we have a really good time. We have weekly office hours as well as Zoom feedback sessions. And so during those times, we get into some really amazing conversations, and I thought it would be really, really good to welcome anybody in the family who wanted to join me on the podcast, and we're going to be talking about subscriptions. But before we do that, what I'd like to do, starting with Greg, let's go around, kind of introduce yourself, and tell us where you're from and what you do.
Hello, I'm Greg, and I'm calling from Denver, Colorado. I do all sorts of production music, mainly some tension stuff, dramedy, lo-fi cues, and meditation cues.
Thanks, Greg.
Hey, hi, I'm from Czech Republic, Tabor, and I do mostly guitar stuff, but flirting with some other styles.
Excellent, thank you. Hey, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm out of Idaho right now by way of Louisiana. I'm a student, 46-year-old freshman. Proud to be a part of this community.
Thanks, Chris.
And I'm Nigel. I'm a displaced Brit living in Memphis, Tennessee for the last, almost 20 years, I think. And I love messing around with sound design and also have a great interest in tension music.
Thanks, Nigel.
Hey everybody, I'm Michal, originally from Slovakia, Central Europe, now living in Zurich, Switzerland. Originally a classical guitarist, and now I do a lot of hip-hop in all flavors imaginable.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rolf from Germany. I started with production music because of COVID, like many of us. One of the main things I do is networking. So gathering like-minded composers. Music-wise, dramedy, orchestral stuff, tension, and 50s and 80s small orchestra Americana stuff.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Rolf. And George.
Yeah, my name's George. I'm from West Virginia, and I do mostly sound design and trailer, mostly horror trailer right now. That could change in the future. I love sci-fi as well, but I'm glad to be here. Thanks.
Well, I am so happy to have all of you joining us, and this really is kind of a snapshot of the community we have here at 52Qs, folks from all over the world, so many different time zones. And I know, it's in the evening over there in Switzerland, and it's morning time, like in Hawaii. And so, not that anybody's from Hawaii, but just so you know, right now it's in the morning. Anyway, it's really good to have you. And one of the things, as I mentioned, that happens during our feedback sessions and office hours is these topics, these hot button grenade topics that get kind of launched into the group and that will spur some pretty fiery discussions. And regardless of where we are in our compositional journey, regardless of how many credits you do or don't have, however many placements or whatever, we are all on the same path. And so today we're talking about subscriptions and software as a service. And I know that is that's a swear word. It's a 4-letter curse word, the idea of subscriptions. But I wanted to ask the group, knowing how bad Waves stepped in it earlier this year, right? And they immediately walked it back, and they really kicked a hornet's nest. What was it about Waves that was like so egregious? Why did Waves stick on us and affect us much more than, the Composer Cloud subscription service or, what Reason is doing? What do we think?
For me, it's, every human being wants to decide what to do and what not to do. And if I buy a product, I have a kind of a contract. So you sell it for this amount and I buy it. But when then a company change it without asking me or without giving me time to think it over, I feel like a slave or so, or just be abandoned and not in charge anymore. And no human being, regardless if they are composers or craftsmen or whatever, want to be ruled by somebody else.
So it was about a loss of control, like felt like you no longer had agency.
Yep.
Got it. Anybody else?
For me, it was suspiciously, I don't know if it happened to anybody else, but all my Waves plugins just kind of stopped working around that same time period when they went to subscription. And the news of them having gone to subscription, I didn't bother to troubleshoot it. I was done with them for pretty much the reason that Rolf says. But additionally, myself being a former marketer, SaaS, I see as kind of one of the worst hooks that you can throw into someone's mouth.
SaaS being software as a service.
Yeah, software as a service. Apologies. Yeah, because it really is designed. I believe it's really designed to keep people on the hook for something they may no longer be using. It's just that recurring payment, and that's just a form of revenue. There's a lot of marketers out there who espouse using things like that constantly with every program they sell you. Not like a subscription to like a 52Qs type of thing, but something where you're supposed to own the piece, but it's SaaS.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with that, but also I think it has to do with the fact, not just being on the hook for paying for it every month. It's what happens if and when you can't or can't pay, or you stop paying, you lose access to it. If you're a craftsman, working in wood or metal or some other artisan thing, and then one day somebody just showed up and ran off with all your tools, it would be kind of upsetting.
Or if your hammer just stopped working just because you didn't.
Why hammer no longer hams. If that's what a hammer does, I don't know. But I'm not a Waves customer, so I think I owned maybe 2 Waves plugins. I think they were gifted to me ages ago by Reason Studios. So they stopped working a long time ago. I think I'd be pretty upset if my toolbox just suddenly stopped working like that. They literally pulled the rug out from under everybody's feet.
Yeah,
with that one, it was so sudden.
And for me, I mean, similar to what Rolf was saying, it's the idea of ownership. It's like when I purchased these, all right, I thought I was purchasing them and therefore owning them in perpetuity. And then all of a sudden they go ahead and change that contract. It felt wrong. It felt like kind of like stealing back what they already sold me.
Well, yeah, and I think they caught wind of that and backed off of it almost immediately. Yeah. I've never seen such a unified outcry of this is not going to fly, and I'm sure I've seen companies backpedal quicker, but not out of direct response to their customer base completely revolting.
It was pretty dramatic, that's for sure.
And rightly so.
Yeah. And so, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think software is a little bit different in the way that we purchase it compared to physical goods. You walk into a Home Depot or something like that and you buy a hammer, you take that hammer home and you own it. But software, what we actually purchase is a license to use it. And that license can be revoked at any time. If you like hack into the program and you start trying to crack it or something like that, they'll take your license away. But they can also revoke it if they decide that the product is no longer available or they don't want to support it. I think Adobe did something similar with Photoshop and some of their other products because I think they were one of the first to start this whole subscription thing. So we can blame them. But it's a little bit different in the ownership side of things, even though, I agree that when I purchase software, I want to feel like I own the thing. Yeah, well,
but in reality, we've kind of always been renting it. We just had the illusion of ownership. It's much more.
Yeah.
Our relationship with is much more like Spotify than it is like buying a CD. What were you saying, Rolf?
But there are differences. For example, Adobe. You're right, Nigel. They were the first with the subscription model, but I still have Adobe CS6, and it's working. It's still working. It doesn't stop to work. So that's a huge difference. I bought it, and I can use it up to 2 days, although it's kind of outdated meanwhile, but I can still use it. That's a different thing.
Yeah, you'll be able to use it until your computer says, like, no more, like it can't. Like I was a huge fan of Fireworks way back in the pre-Adobe days when it was Macromedia, because it was kind of half Photoshop, half Illustrator. And I didn't want to learn Photoshop. I didn't want to learn Illustrator. So Fireworks sat right in the middle. And it wasn't until my Mac operating system couldn't support the old version that I finally had to wean myself and actually learn Photoshop. But why is it that, Adobe, and maybe we just weren't in the industry, and so we didn't hear the groundswell of pitchforks and torches. But how did Adobe get away with it? Well, I'll ask. I have a theory of how Adobe got away with it, but why do we think Adobe got away with it and Waves hasn't?
Well, I think Waves was in a very bad position to begin with to do something like this because of all this annoying update coverage plan. I forgot what it's called. When they hook you in with a very, very low pricing of the plugins themselves, which I actually am to blame. I bought a lot of them with very, very low prices.
Me too.
And then they suddenly stop working after some time if you don't, or you renew you update your Mac OS, and then the plugins stop working. So you have to update the coverage plan, which happened to me. But also, like, for example, I studied at Berkeley, and at Berkeley we had like a Waves bundle specifically tailored to Berkeley. So every student of my major had to buy that, which was maybe like a collection of 20 plugins, which were great. And I was forced by the college to buy them. And then suddenly I thought I owned them, right? And then suddenly they tell me that if I don't subscribe now, I cannot update them anymore, and they will stop working after some time, inevitably. So this is, in my opinion, just a malicious, like, predatory practice, and they just couldn't get away with it. But what I want to say is that they were in a very bad position because of this practice that they had before they had come up with this whole subscription thing.
Yeah,
like the coverage plan is just BS, in my opinion.
Yeah, to me, the difference to Adobe is Adobe came up with a new product when they went to the subscription model. So you could use the old product, and with a new product, you could decide if you use it or not. And then the other thing is Adobe is an industry standard still for graphic, but Waves is not.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe 15 years ago, they were closer to an industry standard, back when they were charging like thousands of dollars for their whole platinum bundle and all of that. And so, and I wonder, is where is the breaking point? What is it that subscription services can do that makes us feel a little bit better about it? Because, Shannon, who does all the design work she's an amazing music director and a musician and bass player and keyboard and flute player and all that, but she does all the graphics for 52Qs. This logo is from her brain. And she has an Adobe subscription. And she kind of grumbles about it, but it's not like Waves level of ire that I know that I got on my motorcycle and had to vent about it. My theory is that Waves cost to benefit ratio far outweighs what Waves did and what most subscription services feel like they do. Like, for example, I think it's like $30 a month or something, and it's like you get Photoshop and Illustrator and like Premiere and all these giant industry, like each one is an industry standard on its own. Whereas for like the Reason bundle, it's $10 a month, right? For Reason, it's not even a bundle. It's like one app. And so I think with Adobe, it felt like, oh my gosh, you're kind of like kid in a candy store. Look at everything I could possibly download. Do you think there's some truth? There's some truth to that? Do you think Adobe just was positioned to back up a dump truck of industry standard software, each of which was hundreds of dollars on its own every year because they kept updating it? Do you think that's
absolutely?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That all rolled around when I was still working in marketing, and the reaction was, "Oh boy, they've really got us by the throat," because they're the only ones. But also, you know what? It wasn't that bad of a deal. Like we were getting, we were able to actually to increase the number of seats we had Adobe products for interns and things like that, because the price was lower than buying everything outright. So that kind of worked for us there versus, the Wave situation with, okay, I lost access to my Wave stuff. I'm going to use other products now.
That's right.
And that was just very quick,
That's right.
I think, when it comes to Adobe, their suite of products is like a Swiss Army knife. It's like a Swiss Army knife of Swiss Army knives. It can do a lot of different things, and it has a very large use case. I mean, you can use Photoshop for all manner of different things, graphic design to Photoshop, sort of photography, and lots of things. Waves, particularly, there's pretty much a one thing. It's a very narrow, focused product, and so I think that's partly why people felt so kind of screwed over by it. I think it's in terms of, the value, the benefit that I would get from subscribing to Adobe is much greater and has a much greater scope than having to pay for something that does a very narrow band of tasks.
So there is a cost breaking point. Like if something is cheap enough, then you'll buy it because it's inexpensive. Or if it's so much content, so many, apps or plugins or whatever that would offset that. Now on paper, Waves had that on paper, because of the sheer just volume of plugins. I think, Mikhail, what you were saying, they had already kind of soured the milk, as it were. And so then when they were trying to like change from strawberry to chocolate milk, I don't know, maybe I just need a snack, but nobody was ready to have any of that. So as far as, is there a price that Waves couldn't? Now, I'm kind of picking on Waves here, but they're kind of the avatar for how not to do this. At what price do you feel like Waves might have attracted you back? Anybody thought of that? Or are they just dead to you?
Well, I think the problem is that they didn't give you the option initially, right? They just told you have to subscribe now because you cannot update anymore. Then they changed it. I'm not sure what the current situation is, but I think now I can actually still update my permanent licenses. But that was the problem. And I would probably never want to subscribe to Waves because I already own a lot of permanent licenses. And if they told me I have to because otherwise I cannot update, then there is so much competition out there, so many great products out there that I would just go to a different provider. I think I'm done with Waves for good.
Yeah, so
I will still use those that
likewise,
I have, but I'm not going to buy anything new.
I'm through with them as well because I started opening projects and the mixes were horrible because I relied almost completely on Waves plugins to do it, and that was it for me. I was just done with them. I mean, I went ahead and I purchased Ozone and whatever else they had, and I've been using that.
Yeah, it's. We said sour the milk, but if you're looking to wean a calf, you sour the milk so that they start, kind of figuring out how to eat on their own. It's kind of like that, I had already jumped ship and I had a handful, but since then I still haven't even. So I'm hearing there isn't really a price. So at this point, it's not about price with Waves.
No,
Trust, no.
Yeah, it's about trust.
It's all about trust. If they did it one time, would they try to do a better rollout another time, which would still not work for us, you know? So that's kind of where I am with those guys.
Right.
I just wonder too if there's a difference for plugins versus instruments, just because for me, Waves seems very replaceable.
Right.
Like anything they have, Logic Pro probably has a stock, option for it. So it's not really necessary. Spitfire Audio, if they have a subscription service, I would be more inclined to do that just because they have some very unique products.
So you would be more inclined to subscribe to an instrument, a VST, as opposed to just a mixing plugin or something. Mikhail,
Yes, definitely.
You were going to say?
Yeah, just look at what Museo did this year, right? The Cine samples, you can have all of Cine samples for I think $10 a month, I believe. Or you can buy the permanent license. They even give you the choice, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So with virtual instruments, exactly, there is some uniqueness. There is some competitive advantage that they have much greater competitive advantage than Waves does, because they have their own unique sounds. Yeah.
Yeah. Just imagine if Native Instruments would switch to a subscription model. They probably won't lose many customers because
if it was priced right, I would think about it. Like, I get Complete, about every other year is when I get Complete. I'll skip because they'll release a new batch of sounds and then eventually roll it into their Complete line. But like right now, as we're recording this, I think like Rudiments came out and it sounds great. I want it. It's great. I wish I had it, but I'm not going to drop $100 on it. I'm just patiently biding my time until it shows up in Complete 16, like in 2 years. But if I had a subscription to it and it just magically showed up, then I'd be using it right now. Which begs the question: what's what's the price point?
And about the Musio, but the cine samples, as you, Michal, mentioned, and I look at that now, they have $49 for educators for a whole year. It's $49. It's crazy. It's like, it's good for the package. It's nice.
Yeah, I jumped on that as well. When Musio first came out, I didn't get it because I had several cine samples plugins already. And I'm like, well, it's not really worth it. But then a $49 educator discount, which I don't think is like a sale. I think that's just their educator price. That's a no-brainer. That's like $4 a month for everything. And they keep adding sounds to it. And I think
they now even have exclusive stuff. I think Cinestrings Pro is only in Museo, not as a separate standalone library, I believe, if I understand it correctly. So yeah, they're going this route.
And they are approaching it similarly to the way that Reason works, in that you get the one Reason plugin and then you load sounds into that one Reason plugin. So Musio is the same way. I like that in Musio you can load individual instruments like separately. So instead of like I'm gonna load up all 300 gigabytes of orchestral sounds, I can say I need the bass flute and load it in. That's attractive, unless you want to just load up the whole thing. Which there was a choir one. I was like, okay, I just can I hit just install and they all go, or do I have to like kind of? What? But that's just me whinging about their UI, which leads me to East West. East West Composer Cloud was, I believe, the first music like plugin subscription service. And when it came out, and I have it, and I've had it since the beginning. I'm a colonist or whatever, charter member, whatever we want to call those guys. I jumped in really early. And they have taken a different approach. Instead of having one plugin that loads in all of the libraries, you are essentially getting licenses to each of the libraries through this one kind of master key. So you're loading up each sound individually. Where do we think East West is at this point? Is this Composer Cloud a good price? Has anybody here subscribed to East West? And if so, what's been your experience?
I am subscribed to East West. Mm-hmm. Again, I have the Edu price, so it's $10 for month, so it's okay. And I find myself looking there for stuff I would normally do not use, like Duduk or something like the extraordinary sounds. I don't have anywhere else there, so I keep it for this stuff, and sometimes for orchestral stuff, which for specially use special sound.
Yeah,
which it's fine.
For me, when I started to do production music, the Composer Cloud was the only source I had for orchestral stuff. But then when I switched to Vienna Symphonic Library and orchestral tools, I thought, well, I may stop this subscription. But to begin with, it's super good. It's really good. You you have access to all the sounds you ever need for, at least for orchestral music.
Yeah. I've been with them for 5-6 years. I also have the Edu price, even though I'm not an educator anymore, but they still give me the same price, which is great. It's like $15 a month, even in Switzerland. And I do have a little bit of buyer's remorse though, because I've maybe used like 5% of what they offer, but I've used a lot of that 5%. Like I've used it a lot in old queues, which means if I stop subscribing right now, I cannot open the old sessions, which would bother me. So I just have to go on, even though these days I only use what's it called? The Spacey Steel Reverb.
Yeah.
I use that a lot. But with the money I've paid for that, I could have bought it outright.
Yes.
But I've used a lot of brass, a lot of percussion, but that's actually it. So I probably could have bought these libraries outright. And but I cannot stop now.
Yeah. So you feel kind of trapped into the subscription.
Yeah, because it's different than Museo. Museo, I bought the permanent license, but I would be happy to pay for Museo because I kind of feel that they still kind of develop the product. I mean, they just started, so they obviously still develop the product. But I have the feeling that they will keep updating sounds, keep updating the software. With East West, I have the feeling that they are stuck in the early 2000s, like with the GUI. It's terrible. Sorry, but it just looks terrible.
Yeah.
The new Opus player, it just doesn't feel like it's 2023 to me. Like both the sound and the graphics. And I've had so many problems with the sounds, like with the programming of the instruments. It's just not out of the box in the same way as Spitfire is or as Museo is. So I don't think the product is super amazing. But for the price, I mean, okay, it's fine. I mean, you get a lot for a reasonable price. So that's the good thing about it. But yeah, I kind of feel trapped a little. Yeah.
Sure. I had Composer Cloud for a year, and I really didn't use it that much because I was not impressed with their user interface. I thought it was just clumsy and kind of, as Mikhail was saying, just old-fashioned and cumbersome. So I just didn't use it as much as I could have. But it also then, and kind of Mikhail alluded to this, gets to the point of this. The challenge with subscription services is that, yeah, someday, you're not subscribed to it anymore, and then you try to go back to an old session, and if you didn't bounce it, you can't get the sound that you had, and that's, for me, very frustrating, just because I don't want to pay attention to what sounds I need to bounce, just in case.
Yeah, and that's something unique to using the instruments as, subscription instruments versus like it's really easy just to kind of throw another EQ or another mastering chain or something like that. But to like find a pizzicato string, which is going to hit the same and as the pizzicatos that you use, that you spent, a lot of time dialing in. Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm feeling trapped, not necessarily by like Composer Cloud and everything. I'm feeling trapped in some of my other subscriptions, namely Splice. I like Splice. I use it religiously. I love it. However, I'm sitting on like 6,000 credits because I get more credits per month than I can use. There's no way, other than going like on a you get a car type of a shopping spree, right? I now feel hopelessly trapped into that. I want to try Loop Cloud. I'd love to try sounds.com, but and viewers and listeners, if you know of a way for me to pause my subscription or to keep my credits, my understanding, if I cancel my Splice subscription right now, I lose those credits that I paid for. The same as with my Audible account, but at least Audible has a way for you to pause your subscription. They have a way for you to kind of go down, like downgrade. But I'm not sure of a way to do that with Splice, and now I feel like trapped.
Well, you could go and buy out the whole sample packs on Splice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
so that you like.
Yeah, that's the shopping spree, right? I could just go nuts and just blast through that. But I don't know. I feel like that's like a millionaire. You have 24 hours to spend $1 million. It's actually tougher than it sounds. If I really want to get my money's worth out of it, but
for me, I have like 3,000 credits on Splice, and I use it a lot, but I can't use all my credits. But honestly, for me, it would be okay to stay with Splice because it's not only about the sounds; it's about the inspiration you get if you listen to one-shots or loops. So it's helping me a lot in the composing process. And
yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Splice. I've been tempted to Loop Cloud because Loop Cloud has some other tools. Their browser engine is really good, and I see that. Okay, so Chris, do you have something you want to add? He's like writing in the chat. I'm going to make you go on the mic, bro. Don't be coming at me with the chat.
I didn't want to interrupt. You know what I'm saying? No, I found an option that says you have to hit the cancel button, and when you confirm, it gives you the option to pause it at that point. It's one of those sneaky
What-
behind the curtain things that you were discussing.
What kind of Konami cheat code is that? Up, up, down, down, left, right, cancel,
Left, right,
pause.
left, right, BA, start.
Come on, get out of my face with that. But that's good to know. I appreciate the follow up. Yeah, I wonder if I can spin my credits. I'll check that out for sure. But regardless, it's that feeling of like you're trapped into the subscription. And so I think there's one thing to talk about, you know, are subscriptions good or bad for the industry? But I want to play devil's advocate here in that one of the people who advocate software as a service, especially coming from plugins and that kind of thing, they would say that subscription service help to curb piracy. By having a subscription, by having an internet connection, and you have to kind of authenticate, which 15 years ago, that was like mission critical. Nope, hit me with a dongle or I'm not interested. But now the internet online all the time, I don't think that's nearly as mission critical as it once was. But do we if we think like a developer, do we think that subscription services help piracy?
I'm not sure. I am sure that piracy is at the forefront of developers' minds. That's a given. I mean, I was in the software industry for a long time, and piracy is a thing. But I get the feeling that for example, when Reason Studios first they came out with their Reason Plus model, it seemed more about company cash flow to me than fighting piracy. I think Reason 5, was the last version that got successfully cracked or widely cracked. So they had a pretty good handle already on protecting the software. I think for them it was more about cash flow, getting a consistent flow of funds into the company to be able to fund further development. Of course, they also did it at a really bad time. They screwed up the release of Reason 12 pretty badly. They stamped all over the people like me who bought Reason 11 Suite and sent that into a dead-end cul-de-sac. And so they upset a lot of people that way. But yeah, I'm not sure about the piracy thing, whether that's a reason or not.
Reason 5 and 6, that was right when they went to dongles and everything, wasn't it?
I don't know, because I started with Reason 2.
Mm-hmm.
I went to 3, and then I had a long hiatus and went from 3 to 9.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know that 6 is when Record came out. When they ran, they said, hey, we need to be able to record into the DAW. So they created a whole separate app called Record, and it ran alongside. I think that was, but they were using thumb drives for a while. And then I think in Reason 6 or 7. Go ahead.
I don't believe that piracy is a problem for the companies, or piracy could be a benefit for the companies.
That's a bold take, Cotton.
Maybe all of us, maybe not all of us, but at least some of us started with cracked versions of whatever DAW. And now we are producers and we learn the stuff, and now we buy the products because we need a reliable system and we want to have the updates. Honestly, I don't believe that piracy is a problem.
Okay, George, you're shaking your head.
Yeah, I don't. I agree with. I do agree with Rolf. I don't think it's a problem for people who are professional composers and producers, because, like you said, you want reliability. You're paying for reliability. I think maybe once I've ever used a piece of cracked music software way back in the day, and I mean, it just locked my machine up. And that was,
Yeah, I totally got
I was
keylogged.
done.
I totally got keylogged from using a pirated version of FL Studio back in like 02 or 03. They totally had keylogged. Yep. Stole my credit card. And by the way, if you're watching this and you're using cracked software, congratulations. Do you think hackers are altruistic, kind of white hat folks who are wanting to just benefit the world? Nope. They are stealing your data. There's no such thing as an altruistic hacker who's hacking like Omnisphere. They're putting keyloggers in. They're stealing your credit card. And congratulations. Yep. But FL Studio
Also,
I used. Yeah, go ahead, Mikhail.
There are also other ways to prevent piracy, right? Like, it doesn't have to be a SaaS model. Like, there is a rent-to-own model that Splice is doing, which is amazing, I think. Like, you actually subscribe to a plugin until you own it, and then it's yours.
That's how I bought.
That's
how I bought Serum.
I bought Serum, and I believe Silent, like that. Yeah.
I bought Serum the same way as well, and it was a great way to pick it up.
Yeah, I agree. And then also what Spitfire does, right? I mean, like, is Spitfire getting pirated at all? They don't have any subscription, but you cannot really. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a hacker. I don't know how to pirate it if I wanted, but I don't think it's a problem for them because they have like all these like keys, and they like every developer has these apps that have to authenticate your purchase, right? So there's kind of like a prevent piracy thing. You don't have to actually have a subscription to prevent piracy, I believe.
Okay. Now,
I'm not an expert. It's just like my feeling.
Yeah, and Kilohearts has theirs is a little bit different. And Nigel, you recently subbed to Kilohearts, right? Theirs is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Oh wow, just yesterday.
Yeah,
so this
just yesterday. And yeah, they are one of the companies that I see doing this right. So for $10 a month, every year you get a $100 credit to buy a perpetual license for one of their products, whether it be Faceplant or Multipass or Convolver or anything else, or Sandpacks. But for the $10 a month, you get access to everything. Now, one of the things that I think is really cool about what they do is that if you buy a Sandpack from somebody that has used, let's say, Multipass, one of their plugins in that patch, in a preset, for example, it will open and play just fine on your computer. The only thing is you won't be able to edit any of the parameters for the Multipass because you don't have a license for it, or it doesn't break it. It will still work just fine. And I think that would be a good model to for some of these other companies to follow. So, for example, if you end your subscription, but you have old projects with instruments that you used, then just make them read only.
Yeah, doesn't Arcade
non-editable?
Yeah, Arcade does something like Output. Arcade does something similar. It's it's kind of like Splice. If Splice was a plugin that ran in your DAW, you know what I mean? And not the Splice bridge, but it's basically a sampler. And so any of the sounds you download, kind of download locally. And when your subscription ends, you can't download any more sounds, but things don't break. And so how would Museo or East West, how would they accomplish that? What do we think? Is there a workaround?
Good question.
I'm not a developer, so I can't answer.
I'm not familiar with either of those products, so I can't really say.
So I can speak for UVI, Sonic Pass, and I use a lot of the UVI products like Falcon or what, and they don't have that. So if I have to buy the single products or or the instruments are gone. So I would love for UVI to have something like Kilohertz special rent-to-own solution, or at least you have paid for it and at least we give you a read-only version so that your projects are not lost. That would be a great thing.
Yeah, I like what Kilohearts is doing. They're basically giving you a rebate. And so if, I've subscribed to Composer Cloud, however long Composer Cloud has been a thing, 7, 8 years now, right? It's been a long time.
Something like that. Yeah.
After 5 years, like here's a $200 coupon. And so if I wanted to cancel my subscription right now, what I would absolutely miss is Spaces 2. That's a daily driver for me. It's one of my desert island plugins. And so I would spend that $200 and I would buy Spaces 2. No questions asked. And so I like what they're doing. And what excites me about this is that we have several subscription companies, software companies, who recognize that subscriptions just by themselves are a pain point. Nobody goes, yay, subscriptions, right? But finding creative ways, whether it's rent to own like Splice does with Serum, whether it's a rebate like Kilohearts, whether it's amazingly no-brainer deals like Museo and their educational discount, finding creative ways to soften the blow, because I don't think they're not going anywhere. And just full disclosure, 52 Qs has subscriptions, right? And so I just want to call attention to that right on the front end. And if it's not too gauche, I'd like to ask you guys, you're all family subscribers. You're paying very real money to help keep all of this happening. And so thank you. I thank you from the bottom of my heart at every opportunity. But what is it about 52Qs or any other educational services that you may subscribe to? Is it the fact that they are educational? But what makes what I do okay? But go ahead, George.
A cost to benefit ratio. There's no two ways about it. Like $35 a month or whatever it is. I think that's it. We have access to you, Dave, twice a week at least. Where we can actually get on the Zoom with you and one, ask questions about the industry and what's happening, or two, for Q feedback. There are other services that I was a member of prior to this where to get your Q reviewed, you had to pay a separate service for that. And that's where the cost to benefit ratio for me was like, nah, I just wasn't going to do it. So I think what you're doing differently is you're giving people more for their money. And it's a subscription up front. You're not changing it. It wasn't like, hey, pay one time and then once you're in, you're hooked, and then by the way, we've updated.
And then you feel trapped. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, it's a family thing that makes me ready to pay monthly the money. For example, 2 hours ago, my daughter came and asked me some questions about Harry Styles and that they may be alternate versions on Spotify, and what was my opinion if AI could do that. And I spent an hour and talked about an AI and music with her because she's my daughter. That's a family thing, and I'm ready to pay power and time and everything. And with 52 Qs, I feel it's a family, and I invest myself not only with money, but with chewing people and, but that's a part of it. So for me, that's the main reason, not I pay and I want to have this and that, but rather I pay because that's my contribution. I'm just thankful for this community.
Go ahead, Mikhail.
Okay. If I can comment on this, why I'm subscribed to 52Qs, maybe some of you know, I have a budget pressure a few times ago, and I decided to not quit it because I don't want to cut on educational. And there's a third reason, and this is the great educational channel or family. I like the family stuff about it. But the next thing is the words you are saying on the podcast. The community is supportive and positive, and all the things comes from you, Dave. And I don't want to lose it. There's a second thing. And the third thing is, I know there is something big coming in this family. I feel it. It's about the briefing room and so on. It's just to stay here and keep connected. It's really important for me.
Excellent. Thanks. Greg, yes, sir.
Yeah, for me, it's I kind of all of those points, because I went to school at Full Sail University, which is where I met Dave, and which was a great educational experience. But then once you're out on your own, if you're going into production music, you are on your own. So having this community for both continued education, like the feedback sessions and everything, is so invaluable to me. But then also the community, because it is a very isolated experience, sitting in my basement, writing music all day long, talking to nobody. So to have the office hours, to have the feedback sessions where you're face to face with people via Zoom, it really makes a difference. I would say those points for me.
Absolutely. Everything what Greg just said, I 100% agree, and everything what everybody else said. But also to me, it's kind of an accountability thing. Like, Dave, you remember when my 52Q started before it was subscription? I was already there, and you, with your Facebook page back then, you made me start writing 1Q a week back in 2019, and that's how my career in production music actually started. Like I started because of your Facebook group. And then when you switched to new platform and the subscription started, I didn't jump on a train right away because there were some other reasons, because of time and stuff like that. But now I'm here, and this is like such an amazing community that motivates me to write, to discuss things, to get better, and actually to not actually slack off, because I have this community to not disappoint, right? Like people that I see every week, like of course Dave, but all of you guys I see you every Tuesday. Rolf, we see each other every other Wednesday in our masterclass, mastermind sessions. So exactly, I mean, otherwise I'm at home alone all day, like 15 days in my studio, 15 hours a day in my studio. I don't talk to anybody, but now, I mean, this is absolutely a no-brainer. Rambling right now, but this is, I agree to everything what everybody said.
Well, thanks. Yeah, Nigel, yeah. I feel like I teed everybody up, man. I didn't mean to turn this into a commercial, but...
I assume the check's in the mail.
Yeah, you got it, baby.
But no, I mean, to echo what everybody else has said, it's the community here that is probably the single most important thing. I mean, I've been having a spell of a couple of months where I've been going through a rough time trying to, get music written. I mean, I guess you might call it writer's block. I'm not kind of sure exactly what kind of block it is, but, having this community has been one of the things that's really kept me going through all of that and kind of working through it and getting myself back to the point. But, family, that's what it's about. I mean, we all have crazy families in the real world. This is about the only family I would actually pay to be a member of, because it's that valuable. And as everyone else has said, those weekly feedback sessions, the office hours, that they're all immensely valuable. And as Mikhail just said, being a production music composer is a very isolating thing. It's, you talk about your desert island plugin. Well, I think pretty much we're on a desert island, each of us, most of the time, and you kind of feel like you're just bouncing around inside your own echo chamber a lot of the time. And so having this kind of interaction and group it's incredible to me.
That's good. Chris raised his hand. I said specifically, let's not raise our hand. But Chris, student's gonna student, man.
Yeah. I didn't want to interrupt, No, I was just gonna say one of the most important parts for me is the qualified feedback. I could make something and give that to 10 people I know, and they're all going to go, "Oh yeah, that's fantastic, great, da, 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 da. Yeah, okay, thank you." No, it's terrible, but the qualified feedback, I don't know why I'm looking at you on the screen instead of my camera.
Oh, that's all right. I've been staring off vaguely, like I'm reading cue cards here.
Yeah, no, as a current student, and after going through your class and going into a few others, I decided that I think I wanted to focus on the production music side of things. Found out about 52 Qs. And since I retired from the military in 2020, I hadn't found my tribe until I feel like I have now. And I appreciate everybody.
Well, man, like I said, I didn't mean to turn that into a love fest, but I'll receive it, and I want you to know, and anybody thinking about it, or any of our subscribers listening, that the idea of the cost to benefit ratio is super important, because at the end of the day, I wanted to create the thing that I wanted to exist. That's why I started the Facebook group. It's like I want a Facebook group of production music composers just encouraging one another. And then it just organically grew and grew and grew. It's like, okay, I want to have I want to just pour into folks. I want to be the thing that I wanted in the world. And so I take that responsibility very, very seriously. And you guys know I'm always looking for new things to add, to the point where Shannon's having to walk me back, like, Dave, you can't clone yourself. You can't do that. But I really, really do appreciate it. And there are other educational services out there. You're probably subscribed to some of those if you're watching these. And I bless and affirm them, because I don't have all the answers. I do not have all the answers. And I am, wrong about things, and I'm learning, and I'm not better than you. I'm just a future version of many of you. I'm just the Sherpa who's been up and down the Mount Everest of production music maybe one or two more times than you have. But I definitely don't have all the answers. So I really appreciate that. Thank you guys very much. And so yeah. And on that note, I think it's a good place to start. Stop. That feels nice and organic. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and I really appreciate you. And this is exactly what I wanted it to be. And for you watching, this kind of thing happens every single week, whether we're talking about cue sheets or whether we're talking about subscriptions. In fact, the germ for this discussion happened from meeting with a family member and saying, "Hey, I think there's a whole roundtable here." But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure having you. And if I haven't said it enough, I need to say thank you so much for your continued support. None of this would be possible at all without you. So thank you. Thank you. Shannon and I both thank you dearly. Once again, a huge word of thanks to Nigel, Mikhail, Chris, Greg, Rolf, Mikhail, and George for joining me on the podcast today. And I am looking to do this roundtable idea again in the future, so be on the lookout for that. But I would love to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about subscriptions? Is there a way to do it right? Let me know in the comments below. I would absolutely love to hear from you. And again, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and patron subscribers of 52 Qs who really do help keep all of this happening. And if that's something that you're interested in, if you'd like to join us on the subscriber level, or even just join the community, it's free to join. Head over to 52qs.com. But that is going to do it for me this week. You definitely want to tune in next week, because I think we need to talk about Spitfire. I'm worried that they've kind of lost their way. Their latest Abbey Road Strings 1 library has released, and I'm kind of worried about Spitfire. So I think we need to have a chat, but that's for next week. I hope your week this week has gone really, really well, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. And just know that I trust and believe that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace. The 52 Qs podcast is copyright 2023 818 Studios, all rights reserved. The music played on the podcast is copyright of their respective owners and is used with permission and for educational purposes only. For more information, including joining the community and submitting your cue for consideration on the podcast, head over to 52qs.com.